Right now in America, there is a war raging. It is a war on law enforcement, and it is a one-sided war with the cops constantly on the defensive. Not only are cops being physically attacked, but law enforcement is fighting a propaganda war. They are attacked by a news media that has a history of disliking law enforcement, the very same news media that makes money and gains power by making people angry about the news stories that are broadcast. The cops are besieged by politicians who sow discord and pander to their voting base because the results of which cause those very same politicians to gain more power. Law enforcement is barraged by claims of prejudice, racism, and unjustified police brutality by celebrities. There are organized groups whose sole purpose is to make Americans view law enforcement as the enemy. Groups whose constantly chanted mantras such as "hands up, don't shoot" are based on proven lies. Those very groups are well funded by outside agitators who use the resulting instability to push their own agenda.
Is there a war on cops? It's a huge question tonight after the high-profile and unprovoked shootings of police officers around the country. But do the stats bear out the perception? RTV6's Jack Reinhardt joins us live tonight with some answers. Jack?
Erica, in recent days, 3 Las Vegas police officers were shot at. 2 of them were injured. That follows high-profile law enforcement killings in Texas and Illinois. But the numbers don't bear out a war on police.
Some liberal media outlets continue to claim there is no war on law enforcement, but they base those statements solely on assault and death statistics and do not look at the larger picture. That would be like claiming there was no Gulf War in 1991 because only 148 U.S. soldiers were killed in action during that conflict.
War on cops, that is the subject of this evening's Talking Points memo. It was inevitable. Whenever you have a media frenzy, things are going to get dicey for those under scrutiny. Racially charged shootings all over America have received enormous coverage on television, with certain liberal cable news programs hammering American police agencies over and over again. Rioting and looting are big stories, and all the carnage is now filtering down to young Americans, influencing how some of them interact with police.
The video clips that follow are just a few of the unprovoked ambushes on cops that have occurred during the last several years.
It is a bizarre story with many twists and turns. We are closely following the revenge killings manhunt, a giant dragnet this hour for this former LAPD officer reaching a fever pitch now. Meanwhile, Dorner is suspected of ambushing 2 Riverside police officers earlier this morning, shooting one of them to death.
Premeditated murder. That's what investigators are calling the shooting death of Bardstown police officer Jason Ellis. Police say someone placed debris in exit 34 on the off-ramp there on Bluegrass Parkway in Nelson County, and when Officer Ellis stopped to remove it, he was shot to death.
Officer ambushed. A veteran officer shot while sitting in his patrol car, and tonight the accused gunman is in police custody.
Las Vegas police say a man ambushed 2 police officers on Sunday, shooting one in the hand. They say the suspect opened fire on the officers while they were in their patrol car.
It's a scene no law enforcement officer ever wants to investigate. The New Orleans Police Department tells us a housing authority officer was found shot to death inside his police cruiser early Sunday morning in Central City. You can see the driver's side window broken out and the cruiser lights still on. NOPD Chief Michael Harrison says the officer's car was found still.
Good evening. We begin here tonight with a developing story out of Las Vegas, the apparent ambush shooting of 2 police officers.
Police say it happened around 11:30 a.m. 2 Las Vegas Metro police officers were sitting down to lunch at a pizza restaurant on the north side of town when 2 suspects, a man and a woman, walked in and shot them at point-blank range.
They were quite simply assassinated.
2 New York City police officers are dead following an ambush Saturday afternoon. Police Commissioner William Bratton says officers Wenjian Liu and Rafael Ramos were shot while they sat in their patrol car in Brooklyn. Both sustained gunshot wounds to the head. Investigators say they're looking for a motive, but that Brinsley's social media post indicated bias against law enforcement. The fallen officers were not engaged with the shooter in any way before they were attacked.
Good evening. There is a killer on the loose tonight, and the police say he is this man, Eric Freen, charged with ambushing 2 Pennsylvania state troopers last Friday night, shooting them with a rifle. 1 was killed. The other remains in critical condition.
The Houston area Harris County Sheriff's deputy was shot to death tonight. It happened at a gasoline station in the Cypress area northwest of Houston within the last couple of hours. There is an active manhunt ongoing, we're told, and Sources also say the deputy was shot while filling his gas tank at a Chevron station in Cyprus.
So you guys have been living here together, right? Okay, and you're getting your stuff and moving out.
Moving out,
but you're for that.
We begin in Philadelphia, where a police officer was ambushed and shot several times by a man officials say pledged allegiance to ISIS. The officer survived but will require multiple surgeries. Today we're seeing surveillance video of the terrifying incident. The city's police commissioner describes it as an attempted execution. The officer, Jesse Hartnett, was sitting in his patrol car when the gunman approached. The gunman runs up to the window while firing, shooting the officer point blank. Incredibly, Hartnett chases the suspect despite being seriously injured.
My understanding is he opened fire on the first officer he saw and then continued that conduct as officers became aware of what was going on, and then several officers engaged him.
The attack that killed 29-year-old narcotics detective Jakai Colson happened outside the District 3 police station on Barlow Road in Palmer Park, at a complex that also serves as the department's busy headquarters.
It wasn't about anything. This man launched an attack on a police station and engaged several Prince George's County police officers in a gunfight, to which they responded heroically.
In the following clips, you will see evidence of a news media that constantly sides with the family and friends of the suspect, a media that gives the family an open mic to say whatever they want, whether or not it is the truth or a blatant lie. That news media knows full well that law enforcement cannot publicly comment on active cases, yet they continually allow only one side of the story to be broadcast. Coincidentally, the side of the story that they do air has in nearly every event been proven to be a blatant lie or based on lies.
Outrage in Ferguson, Missouri today after police shot and killed an unarmed teenager Saturday afternoon in broad daylight. Here's what we know about the death of 18-year-old Michael Brown. After Brown was walking with another individual on a road near the Canfield Apartments in Ferguson, a northern suburb of St. Louis, Missouri. After an altercation, key elements of which are disputed by police, Brown was shot and killed by a police officer. Police do not dispute that a police officer who has not been publicly identified shot and killed Michael Brown. Police officer is on administrative leave pending an investigation. There is also no dispute that Michael Brown was unarmed. As for that altercation, an individual who says he was accompanying Michael Brown, Doran Johnson, has said in multiple interviews.
He pulled up on the side of us. He tried to thrust his door open, but we were so close to it that it ricocheted off us and it bounced back to him. And I guess that, got him a little upset. And at that time, he reached out the window. He didn't get out the car. He just reached his arm out the window and grabbed my friend around his neck and was trying to choke my friend. And he was trying to get away, and the officer then reached out and he grabbed his arm to pull him into the car. So now it's like the officer's pulling him inside the car and he's trying to pull away. And at no time the officer said that he was going to do anything until he pulled out his weapon. His weapon was drawn and he said, "I'll shoot you," or "I'm going to shoot." And in the same moment, the first shot went off. And we looked at him, he was shot and there was blood coming from him, and we took off running.
Johnson says that he himself ducked and hid, but that Brown kept running and the officer got out of the car.
His weapon was already drawn when he got out the car. He shot again, and once my friend felt that shot, he turned around and he put his hands in the air and he started to get down, but the officer still approached with his weapon drawn and he fired several more shots.
And at this moment, he's running, he's chasing after Michael full forcefully down the street as gunshots are being fired repeatedly as well. I went from that window to my balcony where I then saw Michael. He's running this way. He turns his body towards this way, hands in the air, being compliant. He gets shot in his face and chest and goes down and dies.
He was executed in broad daylight. And that's why people are so outraged. That's why people are frustrated, because they're saying yet again, one of our children executed before he even becomes a man.
News for you tonight. An IMPD officer who was shot in the line of duty has died at the hospital. Let's go to Rafael Sanchez.
Our TV6 coverage of this late-breaking story continues here. Erica, I can now confirm that patrolmen Perry Wren has passed away, killed in the line of duty after being called to reports of gunshots being fired.
Well, tonight, the family of Major Davis Jr., the man accused of killing Officer Wren, is speaking out about the shooting.
You don't know what he been through with IPD. We do. He scarred for life. He figured they was gonna try and kill him. I mean, because look what they did to his father.
On Saturday night, the family says they were having a cookout.
And next thing I just hear red shots and everybody running in the house and everybody just hit the floor.
By the time they got outside, they realized those shots were Davis and Officer Wren shooting at each other. Davis had an assault rifle.
Major is not a bad person in spite of what happened. Things happen.
Now the family is worried about Davis Jr.'s reputation.
It's horrible about what took place. But, I mean, I just don't think it's fair for them to keep dragging him through the mud.
And again, questioning police tactics.
You know, I don't know how the police was shooting. They was you know, if they took out any concern about kids running around, I don't know.
There's only one thing this family seems to be sure of.
The boy is not a bad person.
Now, thousands of Americans are marching in New York and Washington and across the country, demanding a justice system that applies the same to everybody and honors our values. And we want you to know that our hearts are out there marching with them.
Next, you will see politicians siding with the subject of law enforcement action and generally speaking negatively about law enforcement. The opinions they are so quick to offer are based on only one side of the story, which does not give a complete picture.
So far, so good. They're reporting. The police are doing what they should. There's a call. They go investigate what happens. My understanding is, at that point, Professor Gates is already in his house. The police officer comes in. I'm sure there's some exchange of words, but my understanding is that Professor Gates then shows his ID to show that this is his house. And at that point, he gets arrested for disorderly conduct, charges which are later dropped. Now, I don't know, not having been there and not seeing all the facts, what role race played in that, but I think it's fair to say, number one, any of us would be pretty angry. Number two, that the Cambridge police acted stupidly in arresting somebody when there was already proof that they were in their own home. And number three, what I think we know separate and apart from this incident is that there is a long history in this country of African Americans and Latinos being stopped by law enforcement disproportionately.
That's why we tried to make sure that they were protected from the cars and the other things that were going on. We also gave those who wished to destroy space to do that as well.
Been killed by police officers. There needs to be a concerted effort to address the systemic racism in our criminal justice system. And that requires a very clear agenda for retraining police officers, looking at ways to end racial profiling, finding more ways to really bring the disparities that stalk our country into high relief. 1 out of 3 African American men may well end up going to prison.
I think all of us have to do some soul searching to figure out how does something like this happen. And that means that we examine the laws and the context for what happened, as well as the specifics of the incident. But my main message is to the parents of Trayvon Martin. If I had a son, he'd look like Trayvon.
Over the Eric Garner and Michael Brown cases reached Capitol Hill. Maryland Congressman Elijah Cummings joined nearly 200 congressional staffers who walked onto the Capitol steps Thursday. They stood with their hands in the air, symbolizing the deaths of the 2 black men at the hands of police, then walked back inside.
Do you believe that white terrorism and extremism is as much a threat to some in this country as something like ISIS?
I think that when you have police violence that terrorizes communities, that doesn't show the respect that you're supposed to have from protecting people in your authority, that can feel also terrorizing.
I was with some young people active in the Black Lives Matter movement. Young lady comes up to me and she says, "You don't understand what police do in certain black communities. You don't understand the degree to which we are terrorized." And I'm not just talking about the horrible shootings that we have seen, which have got to end, and we've got to hold police officers accountable. I'm just talking about everyday activities where police officers are bullying people. So to answer your question, I would say, and I think it's similar to what the Secretary said, when you're white, you don't know what it's like to be living in a ghetto. You don't know what it's like to be poor. You don't know what it's like to be hassled when you walk down the street or you get dragged out of a car. And I believe that as a nation in the year 2016, we must be firm in making it clear we will end institutional racism and reform a broken criminal justice system.
But we've also got some young people here who are making history as we speak. People like Brittany, who served on our police task force in the wake of Ferguson and has led many of the protests that took place there and shined a light on the injustice that was happening. What I am most encouraged by is the degree of focus and seriousness and constructiveness that exists not only with existing civil rights organizations but this new generation. They are some serious young people. I told them that they're much better organizers than I was when I was their age, and I'm confident that they're going to take America to new heights.
How can you trust a media which has repeatedly, intentionally put officers and their families' lives in danger?
Darren Wilson has worked as a police officer for 6 years, 4 years with the Ferguson Police Department. He's described as a gentle, quiet, and distinguished officer, but the department refuses to release his picture. Darren Wilson lives here on this street in another St. Louis suburb, about 25 miles away from the town of Ferguson.
Not sure I can get my arms around this one. A newspaper in San Antonio, Texas, threatening to publish the names and addresses of all local police officers. There had been a shooting in which a black man was killed. The newspaper says, here's all the addresses, here's all the names. They haven't done it yet, but they're threatening to do that.
President Obama, DeRay McKesson, George Soros, and the liberal media. What is the connection?
But we've also got some young people here who are making history as we speak. People like Brittany, who served on our police task force in the wake of Ferguson and has led many of the protests that took place there and shined a light on the injustice that was happening. A lot of the discussion.
It was not only Reuters who removed all mention of DeRay McKesson from Obama's comments. Of all the videos on YouTube from this event, the only video in which Obama mentions McKesson is the video aired by Fox News, the very video clip that caused multiple liberal news outlets to attack Fox News in defense of the president.
Many of the protests that took place there and shined a light on the injustice that was happening. People like DeRay McKesson, who's done some outstanding work mobilizing in Baltimore around these issues.
This should cause you to ask the question, why did all the other news outlets remove Obama's mentioning of DeRay McKesson? Could it be because it would look bad if Obama was siding with an anti-cop conspiracy theorist? Even after an autopsy report confirmed Sandra Bland killed herself, McKesson continued to accuse the cops of murdering her.
The leading voices for the movement Black Lives Matter is DeRay McKesson. Now, he's appeared at demonstrations, get this, in Ferguson, Baltimore, McKinney, Texas, and over the weekend, he was in Charleston, South Carolina. Now, earlier this month on this program, I asked him if he was a professional protester. Watch this.
I've been using my savings and contributions from my friends to do this work so far, and that has worked.
Now, yesterday, the National Review released a scathing critique of McKesson, stating in part, quote, imagine Al Sharpton, circa the Crown Heights riots, with access to Twitter. That's DeRay. Now, we invited him to join us on the program tonight, but he declined. Here now with reaction is the Black Sphere's Kevin Jackson, as well as criminal defense attorney Eric Guster is with us. So when you see that he keeps showing up at all these high-profile events, Kevin, what is your interpretation of it? To me, I don't see any good out of it.
He's a modern-day Al Sharpton. He's trying to make a name for himself being an agitator. And if I'm not mistaken, Sean, I didn't follow this one too closely, but I think South Carolina didn't want him. And what people don't realize is even in Ferguson, I was on hand when they rejected Jesse Jackson. In many cases, they spoke out against Sharpton. And I think people are sick of guys like DeRay who don't add anything to the fabric of the discussion. All he's there to do is to start trouble. He's paid to do it. And it's very unfortunate.
Yeah, and Eric, he told me he doesn't work. I guess this is his full-time job.
Tipped over police cars, set buildings on fire, and looted tons of businesses in the wake of the Ferguson shooting. And just revealed the liberal billionaire who was giving them millions of dollars to protest. Turns out George Soros funneled at least $33 million to organizations demonstrating the death of Michael Brown.
It is not just Fox News pointing this source of funding out. Even the left-leaning Daily Mail UK has shown the Soros connection. It is hard for law enforcement to fight a propaganda war when those who control the media are on the other side, constantly spreading more lies and distrust.
Empire star Taraji P. Henson has created a social media firestorm by revealing that she believes her 20-year-old son was racially profiled and describes this confrontation with police.
I'm going to see my friend. Get your hands out your pocket. What you got in your backpack? Get your hands out your pocket. That's where he's going. Howard University. I'm not paying $60,000 for my child, so I can't sleep at night wondering, is this the night he getting racially profiled?
Moments ago, as the Rams came out of the tunnel, Tavon Austin and Kenny Britt acknowledged the events in Ferguson, and then they were joined by the rest of the receiving corps as they ran out.
However, I just do also want to say, what am I doing here? I'm doing here because I am a human being with a conscience. And when I see murder, I cannot stand by. And I have to call the murdered, and I have to call the murderers, the murderers.
You know, there was a lot of people at that rally, and we were all crying for, a lot of things, but there was one thing in particular, which was stop shooting unarmed people. We want justice, but stop shooting unarmed people.
An actress in an Oscar-winning movie says she was humiliated when police thought she may have been a prostitute.
Danielle Watts is speaking out about the day last week in which she claims she was accosted by a police officer when she was handcuffed. She sobbed, as seen in this cell phone video taken by her partner, Brian.
When the officer came up, he didn't even ask me for my ID. He asked Brian. So he didn't even give me the respect of telling me what happened. You know, so for me, if he had come to me and said, excuse me, ma'am, like, you seem like a respectable person, but, you know, someone made a call. Can we just talk to you for a second? The whole situation would have been different. Absolutely. But he came at it with a very condescending manner that I feel like is typical of what's happening in law enforcement across the country right now. And if we're the country that's supposed to be representing freedom and equality for all, then I think that our police officers should be trained in treating people with that sort of dignity.
Remember Michael Moore, the liberal filmmaker and fat slob who looks like a disheveled homeless person? He has for years been advocating the elimination of the Second Amendment, a gun grabber, but now is demanding that armed American citizens rise up and disarm the police.
All you celebrities out there who poured ice water on your head, here's a chance to do something else. I challenge all of you to sing the "We Ain't Gonna Stop Till People Are Free" song. Here we go. I can hear my neighbor crying, I can't breathe. Now I'm in the struggle and I can't leave. Calling out the violence of the racist police. We ain't gonna stop till people are free. We ain't gonna stop till people are free. Come on, sing it out.
Things are going to be a little different at the Oscars. This year, in the in memoriam package, it's just going to be black people that were shot by the cops on their way to the movies.
What you see in the following clips are the direct results of the ongoing propaganda war on law enforcement.
Hello, 911, what is your emergency?
It is time that you guys know we're no longer playing around with the police departments. Aurora and Denver, we're about to start striking fear, shooting down all cops that we see by themselves. This will go for the sheriff's department. You guys are evicting innocent people. Let us catch you by yourself. And it's shots fired.
Just into 7 News, this Colorado Springs man now under arrest, accused of posting online threats against police officers and retired police officers.
Police in New Jersey on high alert. Gangs are threatening to kill police officers and EMTs. The Violent Bloods gang calling on gang members from across the country to target Jersey City police.
Police arrested a local woman, they said, videotaped herself threatening officers.
Police say this is the woman on YouTube waving weapons and calling on others to kill officers and white people.
We really want people to kill cops? Never said that.
Despite what she told Channel 2's Tom Jones, police say Latasha Ned's gun-waving YouTube rants prove otherwise.
Right now we declare open season.
And law enforcement officers did not take that as an idle threat. They say they received an anonymous tip about Ned's YouTube channel where she goes by the name Empress Sekhmet. In some of her videos, she urges blacks to kill white people and officers.
You start walking up on these untrained and stealing their weapons.
Fry like bacon, pigs in a blanket. Fry like bacon, pigs in a blanket. Fry like bacon, pigs in a blanket. Fry like bacon, pigs in a blanket.
This group marching at the state fair, chanting horrific things. Pigs in a blanket, fry them like bacon, they're saying.
Of the woman they say is behind those threats against police officers.
A death to all white cops nationwide. That's just one threat that she is accused of making on her Facebook page.
The post states, quote, "I condone black on white killings." It goes on to say, "I've thought about shooting every white cop I see in the head," and stated, "Might kill at least 15 tomorrow. I'm plotting now."
We just thought it would be hilarious and symbolic to the officer, Darren Wilson. You know, we couldn't get a conviction, so, you know, tomorrow will be the 1-year anniversary of the Mike Brown shooting, so we just thought it'd be kind of fun and hilarious to get a pig out here and write Darren Wilson on him, dress him up, you know, with a hat and badge, and take it from there and get a few laughs and cut them open and gut them and eat them.
7 people arrested in connection with making threats against NYPD. 3 arrested for posting threats on social media, 2 for making false 911 calls. 2 others arrested, 1 for making threats against the 104th precinct in Queens, the other against the 84th precinct in Brooklyn, where the 2 assassinated officers were.
Police are now taking a close look at those postings. One included a picture of a handgun and read in part, quote, "I'm putting wings on pigs today. They take one of ours, let's take 2 of theirs," end of quote.
We are not saying that cops are always right. Cops are only human and sometimes we make mistakes. We are not saying that there have not been legitimate cases of police brutality or that there have not been unjustified officer-involved shootings. But what we are saying is that nearly every coordinated attack on this profession, including all of those seen in this video, have been unjustified, and nearly all of them were based on lies. Despite the fact that law enforcement has routinely been shown to be in the clear in these cases, by the time that comes out, it is too late. The extensive damage was already done. The character attack already successful. It is time for America to stand beside those who stand between society and evil. It is time for America to stop giving the benefit of the doubt to criminals, liars, and whoever screams the loudest. It is time for America to once again realize that the cops are the good guys. Are you willing to help us make that stand? A society that makes war with its police had better learn to make peace with its criminals. Which side are you on?